Are you a proficient pilot? What even makes you a proficient pilot? Is it a set amount of flying hours in a year? Is it a set amount of flights that you do in a month? Or if it's not a matter of flights or hours, then what would cause you to say, I'm not a proficient pilot anymore? So let's talk about each of these questions. So let's think back to the last time when you were very proficient. What was your peak proficiency? So unless you are currently training for an additional license or rating, it might have been when you passed your last check ride with the FAA. So at that point, the FAA examiner was monitoring you and deemed you proficient and gave you a satisfactory on your check ride, both in knowledge and in skill. So if we think about it that way, if you can't meet those standards and you need to practice a bit before your next flight review, then are you currently proficient in knowledge and skills? So I think for most of us, the skills kind of split after the check ride or after any flight review. So there's things on the check ride, like maybe ground reference maneuvers as an example, that probably don't get practiced anymore. And the level of proficiency of them starts to go down, starts to wane. But I'd like to think other skills improve after a check ride, right? Like landings. The more hours you fly, the more landings you do, the more you should improve at them. And the more you fly, the more situations and different unplanned scenarios you find yourself in, right? These require you to use your decision-making skills, maybe think outside the box a little bit to get a successful outcome. So all of these things go into your toolbox of experience, that you carry with you for flights into the future. So part of being proficient is to definitely fly regularly, but whatever that means, based on your individual situation, because everyone's a little bit different. But I think also it's more than that as well. So I don't think it's a set hours of flight time in a year or a set hours of flights per month. I think that's part of it, but I think it also tracks closely to what you're doing when you go fly. The quality of flying, right? Rather than maybe more so just the quantity. So what exactly do I mean by that? So let's look at some different profiles of different pilots. So just making this up. Let's say pilot A flies once a month. They depart the local area, they fly over their town, maybe a friend's house, and then they just come back and land at the airport. Pilot B flies once a month as well. They go out and stay in the local area. They practice slow flights, stalls, then come back and maybe practice a couple landings. And then pilot C flies once a month to get a $100 hamburger. They take off, maybe they turn on the autopilot, they land, they eat, and then they fly back the same way to their home airport. So if each pilot does this once a month, who's the most proficient? So pilot A is probably the least. Pilot C, while maybe flying on autopilot for the cross-country part of the flight for long periods, does gain some experience by flying in and out of different airports and being put into slightly different situations. And then pilot B maybe is the most proficient in skills, but would lack the cross-country experience and would lack those new situations being introduced, which you can learn from flying to new airports. So I think the lesson here is to try not to get stuck in a rut with your flying. Try to mix it up. Each type of flying has something different to offer you, right? Challenge yourself to fly to a new airport. Dedicate some of your flights to maybe just practicing maneuvers and practicing landings like you would if you were preparing for your check ride. Spend some time practicing emergencies like establishing best glide, finding a place to land, running through your checklist, and then doing some power off landings. So if you can do each of these on a regular basis, I'm betting you'll be a proficient pilot. So thanks everyone for watching today. We'll hope you join us on a future flight, and thanks for flying J1 Aviation.